Welcome to the Predictive Playbook and Sports Memo TV. I am John Ryan, and I'm pleased to have David Bearman, Deputy Editor of Sports Betting Content at ESPN, on the show. And what makes this really good is that of the 8 shows that we have done together so far, maybe I'm his lucky charm or something, but he's 8 for 8 in the event. So he has made significant profits. Most notably, he went 7-1 in the last event that we had a show with, the RBC Classic. And I believe, how many of those were top 10 bets, David?
I believe 4 of those were top 10s that hit, which are all paid at 2-1 or better. I'd agree that you're my good luck charm, except that I played Cam Smith last week at the New Orleans event and won money on him, even though I didn't do a column or a show last week. I kind of took the week off. I only made 2 bets. I took Cam Smith and Leishman to win the whole thing, and I took them to win one of the heads-up matchups that was out there on Thursday.
Yeah, I think we'll change the terminology from Lucky Charm to Horseshoe. That sounds a little bit better, right? Lucky Charm was a cereal.
We do have the Derby this week, so Horseshoe is good timing on that one.
Oh, it sure is. So we're at the Valspar tournament this week for the PGA event. Most notably, and what I love about events like this is there's 3 consecutive holes that are just brutally tough. 16, 17, and 18 is nicknamed the Snake Pit. And I think every single hole in the course is actually named after a snake, and rightfully so. It's called the Copperhead Course at Innsbruck. So those holes are brutally tough. It reminds me of the Arnold Palmer, David, with that gauntlet of 3 holes, and then you have the Bear Trap. There's several three-hole stretches at places like Wingfoot and also at that TPC Sawgrass course. But this is truly one of the hardest courses on the PGA Tour. I believe it's 7 straight years now. The winner has been single digits, and very few players finish under par. So the key factor, I think, this week is you're going to be naming some players here that are really in fine form with their around the green types of recovery. So I'm interested to hear who you have, needless to say.
Yeah, this is a tough course. It plays as one of the top 10 hardest courses every single year on tour. I know you mentioned the Snake Pit, and I know it ends there, but there's a lot of other tough holes. And much like the other courses in Florida, you got to be good tee to green. You got to be good around the greens. You got to hit the greens. You and I have talked about this time and time again. To me, I'm using the tee to green metric again, shots gained, where you got to be able to, it's a combination of accurately getting the ball out there off the tee and hitting the greens. If you're missing the greens, I think you're in trouble this week. Even if you are good around them, which some players are and some players aren't, I think you're going to have a tough time scoring if you don't hit the hard greens out there at Innsbruck. We talk about him every single week as one of my favorite players on tour. You know, I love Corey Connors. He's my human ATM, borrowing a line from my colleague Anita Marks. The guy just cashes upon cashes upon cashes. But it's funny, John, if you look at it, all the times I've taken Corey Connors and been profitable on him, this course actually might fit him the best. We talk about tight fairways, got to get out there and hit them, got to hit the greens, got to be good tee to green overall and around. Let's look at Corey Connors for a second. 6th in greens in regulation, 9th on tour in tee to green and off the tee, 10th in driving accuracy, which is huge here because of the fairways, 11th on approach, and 11th total. Check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. The guy hits all of those. He's a great shot maker, and he held the lead here at Copperhead for the first, second, and third round, the only time he played it back in 2018 before falling apart with a final round 77, which has prevented him from winning more on tour. But you look at a guy who a few years ago was not well known on tour and played well here. You look what he's done this year, showing up and playing well time and time again, and he's had a piece of this lead before. Really like Corey Connors this week. Look at his last couple of stroke play events going all the way back to the Florida swing and the Arnold Palmer, 3rd, 7th, 14th, 8th, and 4th. He hasn't won any of them, but he's had no worse than a 14th place finish in his 5 stroke play events, starting with the Arnold Palmer. There were some tough courses in Florida with some tough fields at the Arnold Palmer, the Players, Jack's course. He's played well on all of them. You can get him at 4-1 for a top 5, 2-1 for a top 10, and of course 20-1 to win it all if you're actually going to go out there and try to get him to give you that lottery ticket. I like him to begin with. I like him on this course, and I'm going to continue playing Corey Connors.
That's awesome. And then you have the Florida Tour, as it's called. Is this another course where the guys who play well in Florida are going to play better than the others here?
I think it is. You still have the Bermuda grass, which is well known in Florida. If you play well on Bermuda grass and you hit your fairways and your greens, you're going to play well. I'm not going to totally take only players who play well in Florida, which sometimes you can do that when you're looking at Jack's event, the West Palm Beach course or Arnie's event. But I do think it helps. Obviously, these players have been out of Florida for about a month, and now they're back. But he is a player who plays well at Florida. He's a player that's played well everywhere, quite frankly. And this is the type of course you got to hit the fairways, got to hit the greens. And it sounds repetitive, but this isn't one where if you're middle of the field in driving accuracy, you're not winning this event. If you're middle of the field in greens and regulation, you're not winning this event. And Corey Connors is top 10 in both of those.
Yeah, that sounds like a good pick. Putting you on the spot here, not intentionally, because we didn't do any, pre-questioning before the show, just, full disclosure. But, Phil Mickelson came up on my little database, and I was thinking, well, shouldn't he be playing the senior tour for this event? Because this is a very tough course, and I say that respectfully. But I noticed, too, in my research that he's had, I think, 4 straight events now where he's gained strokes, tee to green and around the green. So, he's $7,200 on DraftKings. Is he a guy that, can make the cut?
I think he can make the cut. And if you're looking to round it out with someone in that low 7,000s to make the cut, that isn't the worst play in the world. He's not someone I'm going to play for money in any top event other than maybe making the cut. I think, unfortunately, and we all love Phil, but I think his best days are obviously behind him. Until he gets hot again, I'm staying away. I don't blame anybody for if you're looking at that 6,500 to 7,300 range. You're like, well, this guy stinks, this guy stinks, this guy stinks. Let me go with Phil. Sure, that's not a bad play. You do have to pick 6, so I understand that. And I have played Phil in these spots before, but this is a challenging course. He has played here well before, which is probably why he popped up on your database. He's just not going to be one of the guys I'm going to throw money at.
Okay, fair enough. How about another a player that you see as a contender, top 10 best bet?
I like Paul Casey here, and sometimes, John, you don't have to overthink it. Casey, for those that don't know, won the last 2 times this event was held in 2018 and 2019. So you're thinking, okay, well, duh, Dave's going to pick the guy who won the last 2 years. He's still 22 to 1. He's not even among the top 5 favorites to win the event, and you're still getting 3 to 1 on a top 10. Well, what does Paul Casey bring? Paul Casey brings a guy who has finished in the top 10 in 5 straight events worldwide until he missed the cut at the RBC 2 weeks ago. But you're talking about from the Amex through the Players Championship, all against top fields, finishing in the top 10 in all those events. 24th tee to green, which we mentioned before, 14th on approach. And during his back-to-back wins at this course in 18 and 19, he led the field in almost every single category that matters in terms of tee to green, greens hit, putting, etc. So this is a guy who knows this course very, very well, who also comes in playing well, albeit he missed the cut 2 weeks ago in his last event. He is well rested. But why not go back to the well? I love going back to the well. It's why I take Corey Connors off, and it's why I take Cam Smith. Certain guys, Webb Simpson, you like to keep taking. It's not rocket science. I don't just go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to take the top 2 guys on the board and Dustin Johnson and Justin Thomas. They haven't been playing well, but they're the favorites to win because they're the big names. The field is not an elite field, and you have 2 of the top players in the world in it. But Paul Casey, 22 to 1. I think those odds are way too high for a guy who's won this the last 2 times. So I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of the market. People don't want to pick him. Maybe because you don't see him as often in America as you see the other players. All I know is the guy has been a top 10 machine dating back to the Amex back in late February.
Yeah, he's a golfer. I think they completely, he's not even on the radar, but he is one of the best players in the world.
He is one of the best players in the world time and time again. And again, it might be the European influence that people always remember the guys they see every single week. And Casey did win an event, and it was overseas out in Dubai. So people don't watch that. They don't see it. They're not really aware that he does so well. But when I think ball strikers on tour, guys with great iron games that can get it onto the green consistently, Paul Casey's in my top 5 on that list every single year, which is why I take him at all the majors if I can. And I take him at tough events like this because he's a guy who doesn't shy away from a tough course. He's going to hit his fairways, he's going to hit his greens, and he's going to be in contention. And at 22-1, as opposed to, well, Patrick Reed is 18-1, and he's been horrible around the greens. One of the worst players on tour this year around the greens. One of the best players on tour on the greens if he gets there. Or 10-1 on DJ, who hasn't played well in months. Or 11-1 on Justin Thomas, who won the Players but hasn't done anything outside of that. I'd rather spend my money on a 22-1 shot like Paul Casey.
I can't agree more. I guess Dustin has finally figured out the putting a little bit based on some research I've done. But, you know, when you're standing over a putt, and you and I both know it as amateurs, that when there's even a shred of doubt, it's probably not going to go in.
No, and with DJ, like, listen, DJ is number 1 player in the world for a reason. If you came to me on Sunday night and said, hey, DJ won, I'm not going to be surprised. I mean, this is, again, not the toughest field in the world, a challenging course. DJ was in the lead a couple of years ago at this, and he did finish T6. So, yeah, he can go ahead and win it. There's just no value for me at 10-1 to bet on the favorite who has not been playing well. If DJ was 18-1, I'd be all over it. Would I play him in a couple of other maybe matchups and top 20s? Sure. I'm going to play DJ. He's the best player in the world for a reason, and you only have one other top player in the field. But I don't think there's any value in 10-1 on a guy who really has struggled the last couple of events, which is why I'm leaning towards a 20-1 shot in Connors and a 22-1 shot in Paul Casey. There's just better value at getting players who have played much better than DJ, and you really want a guy who's playing well entering a very, very tough course. That being said, you know, just like any of these guys, if they bring their A game and Dustin's hitting these putts, yeah, he could run away with it like he did the Masters back in November. But look at what Dustin's done since then, and it has not been pretty.
One other player I want to mention to you, and then we'll do your best bets for this event. Louis Oosthuizen seems to be another Paul Casey type of player. Like, I don't want to call them grinders, but they're you know, you look at the majors, they're always there. They're always on that front page at some point. They make cuts. Does this course suit him at all?
I think it does, and I think Louis is a strong play. You're not going to see it in the column out of me tomorrow because I have a couple of plays, which I'll share in a minute. But I will be playing Oosthuizen in a couple of DraftKings events and in matchups. He's one of the best putters on tour. Unfortunately, he had that bad drive on Sunday that, well, fortunate for me because I had Cam, but unfortunate for others.
Right.
The one stat that stuck out to me that you heard time and time again on Sunday is, you know, Louis he's a British Open champion, but he has yet to win stateside. He has not won on the PGA Tour, which was an eye-opening stat. The guy has tons of runner-up finishes. He plays very well in the other 3 majors that he's been in. He's got, you know, a couple of runner-up finishes at other majors. He's lost in playoffs at other U.S. Opens, but he has not closed a deal in the United States. That's not saying he won't.
Which is amazing.
It's probably a stat that you look at and say it's more coincidental than anything, but he has not won on courses in the United States. So just like I don't take Finau until he wins, and I'm not taking a couple of other guys until they win, I'm probably not going to pick Louis Oosthuizen to win an event until he proves he can do it. That being said, he's a strong play for a top 20 or top 10. Again, you won't see him in the column tomorrow, but I probably will play him in matchups and or DraftKings.
It sounds great. So let's quickly recap your best bets for the event, and we'll let you get on to your next task, next show.
Obviously, I love Corey Connors and Paul Casey. Those are my 2 top plays. Throwing a couple of other ones out there. I think there's really good value on Justin Rose. There's a guy who was really nowhere to be found from last August's PGA Championship all the way through to the Masters. 1 top 20 in 9 appearances. All of his metrics are terrible because he wasn't playing well for the better part of 10 months. But Justin Rose, former major champion, had the lead at the Masters through 3 different days, played very, very well. Followed it up last week with a T11 with Hendrik Stenson at the New Orleans event. So I think if Justin Rose is back, and it's only been 2 events, but at 45-1, I think you're getting a good price. 3.5-1 to be in the top 10. To me, that's enough value for a guy that when he's on, you never see 45-1. You're just not going to see it. It's 45-1 because Look at the metrics. They're terrible. They represent someone who had 9 months where he did nothing. But if you look at the metrics over the previous 2 events, he's right up there with everybody else at the top of the list, playing really well at the Masters. You saw how good of a ball striker he was. He brings his Masters game to Copperhead, he wins this event. And at 45 to 1, I think you're getting really, really good value. He's also played well here before. He has 2 top 5s and a top 8. So it's not something that he hasn't seen. Plays well on this track, has played well recently. Sure, you're worried about the back, and he hasn't really won anything in a long time. But at 45 to 1, I think you're getting good value. The last name I'll throw out there that I'm playing to win in the top 10 is Jason Cockrat. He actually quietly supports one of the best records at this course. He finished runner-up last year, T8 the year before, and T7 in 2015. He also has 3 top 10s at arguably 3 of the toughest events this year at the Concession, Arnold Palmer, and the Players. He's someone that has played well, and he's 24th in greens and regulation, so I'll be playing him in top 10s as well at 4.5 to 1. I mentioned Patty Reed earlier. I was all set to take Patrick Reed in this event because he's a shot maker. He's someone who finished runner-up twice at this event last year and 2018 and 2015. Really good shot maker, but what scares me away from picking him to win is his work around hitting the greens. He's 137th on tour at actually hitting the greens. If you don't hit the greens this week, you're not winning the event. But should Mr. Reed hit the greens and improve on that 137th, he's the best putter on the planet. I wish I could borrow his putting game. So he is so good at putting that if he hits his greens, he can win this event. I'm going to meet somewhere in the middle, plus 225 at a top 10. I'm also going to be playing Charlie Hoffman as a top 20. Charlie's been hot. Couple of top the last couple of weeks. Played well here before. Strong tee to green, 16th, 15th on the pro, and 17th overall. 5 top 25s here. Not playing him to win. I think those odds are just not, equivalent to what he is. But I will take him at about 2 to 1 to finish in the top 20.
That's awesome, David. I know you have things to do here, so we're going to conclude the show here. We're going to go for 9 for 9 for David this week, and I can't recommend anybody more to tail these picks than David right now. I've never seen anybody so scorching hot in all my life.
Thank you.
Going.
No pressure. No pressure. I know you've said this before, and hopefully you won't mush me, but that's good, and I appreciate all the kind words.
You bet. So for David, myself, in the Predictive Playbook, may all the wins be yours.